River's such a neat little place, and I'd never heard of it until we happened through it last year.
Mm-hmm. It's like you've gone through a time machine and come out in the most amazing place you didn't realize was there.
It's very unique. There's no traffic lights, no box stores, no fast food.
It's perfect.
It's very much his speed. It sits right on a tidal river, which is really neat. We were there at low tide last year. I'm curious, we should have checked if it's going to be high tide or not, but the water can come in 35 to 40 feet when the tides are actually in. They have actually nicknamed themselves Village on Stilts and the Switzerland of Nova Scotia.
Made it.
Made it. And wait for some coffee. We are in Bear River, Nova Scotia this morning, and we figured we'd start this morning off with some coffee.
Always the best way.
Exactly, Sissy Boo Roasters. We are here with John and Aaron. Guys, how long have you been roasting coffee?
We've been roasting since 2009.
Ooh, and are you from this area?
Nope, we moved here full-time in 2008 after
wow.
buying the building.
Wow.
And what a building it is.
Yeah.
They call this the town on stilts, I read? The village on stilts, sorry.
Yeah, a lot of the buildings, there's still some that exist downtown, but a lot of the village is built out over the water to accommodate for the ships and stuff that we're loading and unloading.
That's right.
That's interesting.
So why roasting coffee? I mean, other than the fact it's delicious.
It was just something, I used to do a lot of forestry, and it was just something that I always thought about. Like when I was planting trees and stuff, I was always staying in these little villages and towns in BC, and there was almost always a little roaster there. And that's where we ended up on our days off, because that was where the good coffee was.
Oh, yeah.
So, and then I come back here and I'm like, well, we don't have that yet. So I was trying to figure out a way to transition out of forestry and thought that might be something worth trying. So.
Well, if you've been here since 08, then clearly you got it solved.
It's working so far. We think we're ahead.
And because this is one of two locations that you have.
Yeah, we have the one here in Bear River, and we also have one in Annapolis Royal, which is about 20 minutes away or so.
Okay. So how does being a coffee roaster compare with being in forestry?
It's 180 degrees.
I bet.
Yeah.
Aaron, what's your background?
I also did a lot of work in forestry. John and I met tree planting out west, and I always said that I'd met a maritime man with a very strong homing device, and he was very generous in welcoming me to come with him, but it was obvious he was heading in one direction. So I made and amongst that I also did a bit of book publishing. But yeah, I made the leap in 2008, and it's really been a lovely spot to grow up and to raise our children and engage with the community. I think at heart we both were natural entrepreneurs. I don't know that I would have known that about myself at the beginning, but looking back, we both really work hard. We like to be efficient with our time, and I think we're a little bit stubborn. We like to be our own bosses. We're also creative, so having the flexibility. If something's not working, you change it up a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
It requires a lot of hustle, but it is interesting, and we've enjoyed that.
Oh, don't we know it?
And what drew you guys to Bear River?
It's beautiful.
Just the scenery, yeah.
Well, the scenery, but it's also like I bought a house here in 2008 or 2000, which was far enough away from work when I was in my off season to kind of decompress. But the community here was so welcoming. It felt like coming home whenever you came here, so it just...
And very eclectic, it's long been known to be a haven for artists and musicians.
I could definitely see
people
that.
that are interested in living a little closer to the ground and a little more off the beaten path. And that had an appeal to us for sure, yeah. Even though we're very rural, there's an intellectual depth here, because people really have incredible skill sets and very diverse life experiences, and it keeps it interesting.
We were actually reading about your story on the website, which resonated quite a bit with our story, because we're in the process of, the whole point of getting the Airstream is that we're looking at downsizing from our 2,400 square foot house in Truro to maybe full-time living in the Airstream and moving into more rural areas. So when we were reading that, we're like, oh God, they get it. Exactly. Well, we would love to come in and see your business and how you roast your delicious coffee.
Yeah, sure.
All right,
Let's go check it out.
Oh, wow.
What a beautiful building. So you own the building. It must have been a lot of work to restore it to what you have now.
It is a lot of work.
What was it
And
like
it's
when you had it?
It was pretty much a big shell. The heating was shot in it. This room that we're in, the plaster was falling off the walls. The floor was battleship gray.
Oh, so it started as just the roasting of the
Just
coffee.
the roasting in the back, yeah. And I was selling it like local farm markets and stuff.
Wow.
Okay. So it's been a continuous evolution, basically.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, from the farm market, for 2 winters, I think, and then we started to hear from locals in Annapolis Royal, we'd love to get a cup every day, you should open. So we partnered with a friend who had a photography gallery on the main street in Annapolis Royal, just kept overhead low, and we started super bare bones. And the town and the surrounding customers were just so supportive. That horrible winter of 2015 when snowbanks were chin high, people were climbing up and over to come and buy a $2 cup of coffee all winter long.
That was my first winter in Nova Scotia. Before I moved, everyone's like, oh, you'll find a big difference from Newfoundland. The winters aren't nearly as bad.
And the amount of art in here is pretty incredible as well.
It has really been an organic process. When we opened this cafe, of course, what are we going to do for art on the walls? And because we are surrounded by such a plethora of talented arts and crafts people in this area, it was just kind of natural. Well, let's try a rotational gallery style. So every 6 weeks, we have a new artist that hangs here in Bear River, and this show travels then to Annapolis Royal for 6 weeks. So overall, it's a 3-month showing. And we have hardly had any repeat shows in 6 years.
Oh, wow.
It's quite phenomenal,
It's
the
world
amount
class,
of
too.
talent.
Yeah. And the wood, local buddy of mine, he's a arborist, and wood's from his place. The tin on the front is from my cousin's local. She renovated her kitchen, and yeah, I just kind of pieced it all together. Like
No
the
kidding.
benches here came out of my firewood pile.
Oh my gosh.
So
Wow, that's an impressive firewood pile. That's a huge
no
plank.
kidding.
yeah. and they're book matched. Actually, it's from the same tree. It's a book match set.
Very nice.
Oh, I've never heard that term before, but I am not up on forestry.
Yeah, it's really good.
Garanti?
Yeah, this is a 15 kg roaster. It's a big step up from what used to be a 5 or 3 kg roaster that I started on. I can do about 1,200 pounds a day on this roasted weight.
And so do you just like buy these, obviously not locally?
This one I actually bought. This was a Nova Scotia roaster that went bust. He got sick and couldn't roast anymore, so we picked it up. And I've done some pretty big modifications to it to make it do what I needed to do. It's still pretty old school now. Like a lot of them, they come with a lot more technology built into them. We're about to go through a build, both with our rebranding and also, as you can see, we're kind of running out of space here. So we're looking to create a new build. Instead of trying to repurpose another old building, we're going to try and build something specific for us roasting. And so we reached out to Just Us to see what they've experienced in the past as they were growing, what worked, what didn't work. And we found that they were very welcoming
That's good.
and very open, and they want that collaborative relationship. So that was really awesome to have that experience.
Yeah, makes a huge difference.
Yeah, yeah. But then, anyway, there is a legend behind. Maybe if I just read it, it'd be easier.
Oh, is it on the bag? I didn't
Yeah, it's
even
on the
notice.
bag. I'll put it on the side there.
Smart.
And it says, it is said that the Siskiyou River, located in southwest Nova Scotia, was named by a loyalist settler who encountered members of the Mi'kmaq Nation upriver from present-day Weymouth, which is a town another half an hour away or so. Mi'kmaq wanted to show the loyalists 6 owls that were in a tree nearby and pointed in the general direction of the tree, saying in French, "C'est vous." The loyalist thought he was pointing to the impressive tidal river behind him, and it has been called Sisabu ever since.
And did I read that that's also like a nod to the Acadian culture in this area as well?
Yes, yeah. Sisibu would be 6 owls, so the play
Yeah.
on Sisibu.
Coffee in the morning and wine in the afternoon. I think that sounds like a pretty good combo.
Wine in the morning is okay, too, past a certain point. Once we're at 11 a.m. here, it's noon somewhere.
Exactly. I like your style.
Yeah, that's mimosa time.
So thanks for having us here today. This is a beautiful facility.
Thank you, and we're very pleased to have you here and show off our old barn that is now a new winery, or newish winery.
No kidding. So is it the building that's been here since the 1800s, or is it the winery?
Yeah, no, the building was built in 1883, built originally as a barn to support the farming operation across the street.
Okay.
And the whole hillside actually operated as a dairy farm for about a century. And then in 1989, the gentleman that we bought it from 5 years ago purchased the barn and 11 acres of land behind it, and he converted it into what it is today. We're living in the Toronto area, and I was doing the grind of a commute from the suburbs into downtown Toronto every day. And my wife Susan is a pharmacist, and she sent me a real estate listing for this place for sale one day at work, and she probably didn't think it was going to actually lead to anything, because we dream and kibitz about things like that like anybody would. But I latched onto it. I was working in beverages, just not alcoholic beverages. And we decided we would come see it. And we kind of kept it secret from the family, the real intent of the visit. And we came down here in December, which is when my birthday was. So nobody thought it was odd that we were taking a weekend trip for my birthday. And it was a wicked snowstorm. This place was buried in snow, but we fell in love with it. We fell in love with it, and we thought, well, if we love it in these conditions, we're really going to like it in the middle of June or the middle of July in a beautiful summer day.
Absolutely.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So we use all local artists from right here in Bear River on our labels. So that's our way of supporting local and local's way of supporting us. And so most of these labels, these two, the Greater Yellow Legs and the Red Eft, we inherited from the previous ownership and continued with them. This one is a new one from by us. Elizabeth Myers did that. But this was the very first one we commissioned. Okay. And there's a pileated woodpecker that lives in our vineyard. They're common around Nova Scotia. They're beautiful birds until they start eating the grapes on you. But so we decided to honor our pileated with a label, and we named it our pileated Pinot Gris.
Well, Darren, I would love to take a look at your vineyard if we can go have a look.
Yeah, let's go outside and have a look.
Can't wait. Wow, it's so beautiful.
We have a beautiful little guest room on site. It's almost completely booked this season, and those guests just love the experience they have, where the first thing we generally tell them is treat the place like it's yours. So early in the morning before we open for the day, they sit out here with a coffee. Later in the day, they can be in the shade of the oak trees and enjoying a glass of wine, and just the peace and quiet is really appreciated. And we are also looking to expand in that regard. There's only one room in the winery, and we can't change that. But down on the riverfront here, we have a little cabin, and it's just a beautiful little setting. I got to do a little bit of renovation work to bring it up to rentable conditions, but in the next year or two, we hope to be able to rent the cabin on the waterfront as well.
Nice.
And the guests that have wandered down there to experience it have all come up the hill saying, why don't you rent that? We would pay for that, for sure. It's an interesting experience.
So if you decide there's a space that we could bring the Airstream down and test it out for you, you just let us know.
All right. I think we could get the Airstream down the river. I just don't know if we get it back up.
Yeah.
Right.
It may become the rental cabin if we get it down there.
I mean, we'll talk.
Welcome. We've seated you in our artist corner here to have a little tasting, and this is where we post the pictures from our artwork, the original artist renderings. We get them to sign and date them, and so we call this little section of the tasting room our artist corner. So
It's such a nice personal touch.
personally, I think this is our best table to do a tasting at. So the red eft is actually the little critter on the front there. It's like a salamander or a newt. And the red eft is native to Nova Scotia. This label was by Wayne Boucher. Actually, it was one of the first ones done many years ago by the previous owners. And Wayne is a very well-known local artist. And the story behind the label is that the eft is actually that bright, vibrant color, kind of an orangish color at a very young age. And then as the eft gets older, it turns a more mottled brownish grayish color like you would expect a salamander or something to be. So we liken that to how a red wine changes significantly with age as well. A very young wine will taste very different than an older wine as they mature. This is a two-grade blend of Baco Noir and Marshall Foch, and it has been oaked. So the oakiness we find really brings out the kind of smoky finish that Baco Noir is known for. You get a little bit of fruit on the up front from the Marshall Foch, and think darker fruits like plum or blackberry. But then on the finish, the Baco Noir kind of kicks in, and it lends that bit of smokiness texture to it. And it's a mature wine. That's a 2016, so that's a wine that's nicely aged. Yeah.
It is all of
that's
those
a really
things.
nice red.
Yeah, you just get the, like, it's not a really heavy red. You get just a little bit of, these are the darker fruits and a little oaky finish, but it's certainly not overpowering. It's really nice.
Yeah, lighter body. Nova Scotia is known for doing, medium bodied reds maybe, but we're not growing the type of grapes here that make, those big heavy reds. So very pleasant. Even on a summer day, a lighter bodied red, you can serve with even a little bit of chill on it. It doesn't hurt on a summer day. But I still call that my winter wine. It's got that nice warm, kind of, it's one of those warm reds. Yeah.
Did you see that sign at the winery that said 1611?
I did, but I never actually read it.
Apparently, that's when the people with Champlain planted the first grapes in Nova Scotia in what would become Bear River.
Oh, interesting. Nice way to tie it together. Did you see the white flag over there? I was wondering, was the fort surrendered?
I don't know, but I would assume so if a white flag is flying.
Well, let's go find out.
Let's do it.
So here we are at Fort Anne. However, that was not the original name. So the territory that we're on is Mi'kmaq. The Mi'kmaq were here for well over 3,000 years. And then in 1604, when Sieur de Monts and Samuel de Champlain come up the basin, Samuel de Champlain is so impressed by the size of it, he calls it Port Royal. And the entire territory is called Port Royal. So everything is going to be named accordingly. So we have the habitation at Port Royal. When the French are here, we have the fort at Port Royal. When the British are here, we have the fort at Port Royal, right until 1710. At that point, the British take over for the last time. They want to make this a British community. Queen Anne is on the throne, and using the Greek for the city of Anne, we get Annapolis. Because she is queen, we get royal. So what used to be Port Royal becomes Annapolis Royal. And so then we have the fort at Annapolis Royal. Now, if you look at the flag flying right here, you look at that, that is not the Union Jack. That is the Union flag. And so in 1707, Scotland and England will unite to form Great Britain. Ireland, that's the cross that's missing on that flag, does not join until the early 1800s. And that will be known as the King's colors in the when we have the American Revolution. Now over here we have the white flag. That is not the flag of surrender. That flag was instituted in 1680s by King Louis XIV of France. He wanted to protect his colonies and created La Marine Franche. And their flag is the white flag, and it stands for purity. Okay, so you noticed the nails were bent, but what I want to show you is the front of the door here. Now, have you heard of the expression dead as a doornail?
Yes, I have.
And what does it mean?
You don't get any deader?
No, or it's useless. It's totally useless.
Oh, okay.
So if we tried to straighten this, because of the quality of the metal, it would snap. And each one of these nails is made by a blacksmith, hand-tooled, handmade, very expensive. So what they are showing is I am so wealthy, I can afford to waste my nails.
Oh, it's actually not like a structural.
It's not a structural thing, it's a show of wealth. This is the black hole, and actually we have an activity with the Explorer Guide where we try and dare the kids to stay down with the door closed.
I don't think I want to do that.
Just be careful coming down.
Sure.
Oh my God, the temperature
Yeah, it's a real
change.
temperature difference, isn't it?
So at the end, you can see the ventilation shaft.
Oh, yeah.
As you can see, the walls are also very damp, so if you give it a touch, you can feel the
Oh, yeah.
wood. So if you were stuck down here at night, it would be pretty...
Miserable would be the
that's
word
right.
that I would probably use.
Now, yeah. Now, when we have school groups come through, we like to bring them in, and we like to dare and have them stay in the room with the door closed in the dark, just as it would have been back then.
I don't think I want to do it.
Yeah.
I knew you were gonna do that.
So,
5 minutes is what he said?
yeah.
Is that what the time was?
He thinks he's funny.
You've aged 20 years in 2 minutes. The terror.
And you have to keep thinking that there are between 15 and 20 buildings when this is an active fort.
Right.
And the curtain walls would have been 2 meters higher than you see right now. But I want to draw your attention to the cemetery. So there are over 2,000 burials in the cemetery. We have only 234 stones. All the others would have been wooden crosses, which would have rotted over time. Now, the oldest stone that we have dates from 1720. You would have to have been very rich to get a stone because it would have been engraved in Boston and then shipped here. Half the stones have been cleaned down. We found inscriptions that were hidden by the lichen and scroll work. And so a lot of work has been established because of the interest of the community in a park site, and so they're really taking ownership of it. And one of the volunteers, in fact, has published a book with all of the stones and all the inscriptions.
It's a really common thread on every place that we've visited about how much the community is invested in either preservation or going forward. So this is a really neat way to see how this site has been here for so long, and now these new technologies and new interests are bringing new details and history to what's always been here.
Yes, and it's the way it's meshing. Like we can provide and they provide, and together we go forward. So it's really nice.
Certainly clear to a beautiful day now.
Yeah.
Sizzling.
Seriously.
So you worked up an appetite on that tour?
That's right. I want to end every tour with donuts. It's got some weight to it.
Looks like a burger donut.
Yummy.